I should have known better. That's what I keep telling myself now. Staring at my laptop screen at 2 a.m. Watching Kaylani's Instagram stories dissolve into increasingly desperate pleas for investors. But back then, 6 months ago, when she called me crying about her revolutionary skincare line, I did what I always do. I dropped everything to help. Soren, you're the only one who gets it. She'd sobbed over FaceTime, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Mom and Dad think I'm wasting my time, but you've always believed in me. Had I though? Or was I just programmed to say yes to family? Either way, $15,000 later, here I was designing her logo at midnight because she needed it ASAP for the manufacturer. That became my life for months. Endless revisions, emergency fixes, late-night crisis calls about packaging, colors and website glitches. Kaylani had this way of making her problems feel urgent and everyone else's feel trivial. When I mentioned I was up for a promotion at work, she'd somehow pivot the conversation back to her launch timeline anxiety. When I canceled weekend plans to fix her e-commerce platform, she'd text things like, "You're literally saving my life right now," with enough emojis to crash a phone. I told myself it was temporary, that once the business launched, she'd handle things herself. I'd built the entire infrastructure, the LLC paperwork, the business bank account with both our signatures for security, the website that took me 3 weeks to perfect, even the social media strategy. She just had to show up and be the face of it. The launch party was supposed to be my moment too. Not center stage, I knew better than that, but at least acknowledgement. I'd invited a few colleagues, thinking maybe Kaylani would mention how I'd helped build everything from scratch. Instead, I watched from the corner as she worked the room like she'd done it all herself. "This has been my dream since college," she told a potential investor, gesturing at the display I'd spent 2 days setting up. "I've poured my heart and soul into every single detail. My heart, my soul." I sipped my wine and tried to swallow the bitterness along with it. Then came the toast. Kaylani's voice cut through the chatter as she climbed onto a chair, glass raised high. "I want to thank everyone who's here tonight, everyone who actually believed in me, not just those who wanted control." The room laughed. A few people glanced my way. My face burned. "You know how it is," she continued, her eyes finding mine across the crowded room. "Some folks just invest because they can't create anything themselves. They need to feel important somehow." More laughter. Someone actually said ouch and elbowed their friend. I stood there, wine glass trembling in my hand, watching my sister, the person I'd sacrificed sleep, money, and sanity for, reduce me to a punchline. I didn't storm out. I didn't make a scene. I just stayed frozen, smiling, that awful forced smile you make when you're dying inside but everyone's watching. When people approached me afterward with "awkward, that was brutal, man" comments, I just shrugged and said something about sibling rivalry, but inside I was done. I drove home in complete silence, not even turning on the radio. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, but my mind was racing. 28 years of being Kaylani's safety net, her fixer, her emotional support system. Man, this is how she saw me. A control freak who invested out of inadequacy. The worst part, maybe she wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe I did need to feel needed, but that didn't make what she did okay. I sat in my driveway for an hour, engine off, just thinking about all the times I dropped everything when she called. The promotion interview I'd rescheduled because she had a packaging emergency. The relationship that fizzled out because I was always canceling dates to handle her crises. The sleep I'd lost, the stress I'd carried. The way I'd molded my entire life around being available for her disasters. And for what? To be publicly humiliated. At her moment of triumph, my phone buzzed. A text from Kaylani. "Great party, right? Thank you so much for everything, babe." I stared at that message for 20 minutes. She had no idea what she'd done. No clue that her joke had been a knife in the back. Or maybe she did know, and this was her way of smoothing things over without actually apologizing. I didn't respond. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started drafting emails. First, to the lawyer who'd helped set up the LLC. I wanted to understand exactly what my options were regarding the business structure. Second, to the bank where we'd opened the business account. The lawyer called me back within an hour. "You want to remove yourself from the agreements? Well, you have that right. But it would essentially freeze most business operations. She'd need to restructure everything, get new accounts, new agreements. How long would that take?" I asked. "Weeks, maybe months, depending on how complex you've made the structure." and she'd need significant capital to restart everything independently. Perfect. The bank was even more straightforward. As a co-signer on the business account, I could freeze it pending dispute resolution. All I had to do was show up in person with ID and sign some paperwork. I spent the rest of the morning methodically unwinding 6 months of my life, removing my name from vendor agreements, canceling the web hosting service tied to my credit card, transferring domain ownership back to my personal account since I'd registered it originally. Every click felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By noon, I'd sent Kaylani a simple email. Given your concerns about control, I'm removing myself from all business agreements effective immediately. You'll need to restructure independently. Best of luck. Then I turned off my phone and went for a very long walk. When I finally turned it back on that evening, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. They started confused, then panicked, then angry, then desperate. The evolution told a story. She'd tried to access the business account, hit the freeze I'd put in place, then realized the extent of what I'd done. The final message, sent just 20 minutes before. Soren, please call me. We need to talk. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Right, I didn't call her back. For the first time in our relationship, I let Kaylani sit with the consequences of her actions without rushing in to fix things. It felt strange, like flexing a muscle I'd never used before. The next few days were a masterclass in her escalation patterns, which I was now seeing clearly from the outside. First came the wounded confusion. I don't understand why you're being like this. Then manipulation. This is going to destroy everything I've worked for. Then anger. You're being petty and vindictive. Finally, desperation. Please, I'm begging you, just call me back. I watched it all unfold through text messages I read but didn't answer. It was fascinating in a horrible way, like studying my own psychological conditioning from a distance. For years, each of these emotional buttons would have had me responding immediately. The guilt, the fear of her falling apart, the ingrained need to be the responsible one. But something had shifted at that launch party. The humiliation had burned through those old neural pathways. My mom called on Thursday. Kaylani says Yuta had some kind of fight. She's very upset, Soren. She won't tell me what happened, but she's been crying all week. Did she mention what she said about me at her launch party? I asked. A pause. She said it was just sibling teasing. You know how Yuta are, how we are. Like this was some mutual dynamic instead of years of one-sided emotional labor. Mom. She publicly humiliated me in front of people I work with, after I spent 6 months and $15,000 building her entire business infrastructure. Oh, honey, Mom's voice got that careful tone she used when she wanted to minimize conflict. I'm sure she didn't mean it that way. You know Kaylani, she gets nervous and says things wrong sometimes. Can't you just talk to her? She really needs you right now. There it was, the family refrain. Kaylani needs you. Kaylani's struggling. Kaylani's having a hard time. Never mind what I needed or how I was doing. Never mind that I'd been systematically erasing myself to prop her up for years. No, Mom. I can't just talk to her. Not this time. But the business was built on my foundation. If she wants it, she can rebuild it herself. I could hear Mom's frustration through the silence. In her world, family meant unlimited forgiveness and endless second chances. Boundaries were selfishness. Walking away was abandonment. This isn't like you, Soren. She finally said. She was right. It wasn't like me. That was the whole point. Friday afternoon, Kaylani showed up at my office. Security called up to announce her, and I almost said to let her up. Old habits. But then I remembered her toast, her laugh, the way she looked right at me while delivering the punchline. Please tell her I'm unavailable, I told security. She waited in the lobby for 3 hours. I watched from my window as she paced around the parking lot, occasionally looking up at the building. Part of me, the old part, wanted to go down there, to smooth things over, to make the discomfort go away. But I'd learned something important over the past week. Discomfort wasn't an emergency. Other people's emotions weren't my responsibility to manage. That evening, her Instagram story appeared. A tearful selfie with the caption, "When family turns their back on you, you find out who you really are. Building something beautiful from ashes. #blessed, #entrepreneur, #family issues." The comments were exactly what she was fishing for. You're so strong. Family can be toxic. You don't need negative energy. I almost rolled my eyes. But then I caught myself smiling instead. She was playing her greatest hits, the victim narrative, the vague posting, the inspirational quotes, and for the first time, I was watching the performance instead of being swept up in it. The weekend brought reinforcements. Dad called Saturday morning, his voice tight with frustration. Soren, what the hell is going on? Kaylani's saying you sabotage her business. That can't be right. I explained the situation calmly, the investment, the work I'd done, the public humiliation, my decision to withdraw. Dad listened in silence, then sighed deeply. Look, son, I get that your feelings were hurt. But this business, it's everything to her. You know how she gets when she's stressed. She probably didn't mean what she said. She meant it, Dad, and even if she didn't, the damage is done. Can you just work it out? For family, for family. The magic words that had governed my entire life, the reason I'd never learned to say no. Never learned to put my own needs first. Never learned that love shouldn't require self-erasure. I am thinking about family, I said. I'm thinking about what's healthy for our family long term. And enabling Kaylani's behavior isn't healthy for anyone. Enabling. Dad's voice sharpened. She's your sister, not some charity case. Then she can act like my sister instead of treating me like an ATM with legs. The line went quiet. Dad wasn't used to me talking back, wasn't used to me standing my ground. None of them were. Sunday brought my Aunt Viridian, Mom's sister, who'd apparently been recruited for the intervention campaign. She took a gentler approach, coffee and concerned questions about my state of mind. I'm worried about you, she said, stirring her latte. This isn't the Soren I know. You've always been so supportive of family. I've always been a pushover, I corrected. There's a difference. Viridian frowned. That's a very harsh way to look at it. You're caring. You're generous. Those are beautiful qualities. They're beautiful qualities when they're appreciated, when they're taken advantage of. They're weaknesses, but Kaylani does appreciate you. She talks about you all the time, how smart you are, how much she relies on you. She relies on me because I never say no. She talks about me because I'm useful. But when it came time to actually acknowledge what I'd done for her business, she turned me into a punchline instead. I could see Viridian struggling with this. In our family mythology, I was the steady one, the helper, the one who fixed things. Kaylani was the creative one, the dreamer, the one who needed protecting. The idea that these roles might be toxic, that the helper might eventually stop helping, didn't fit the narrative they'd all constructed. Maybe if you just talk to her, and V. With all due respect, I've been talking to her my entire life. I've been listening to her problems, solving her crises, funding her dreams, and cleaning up her messes since we were kids. And the one time I needed her to simply not humiliate me in public, she failed, spectacularly. But she's family. There it was again, the ultimate trump card. Family means never having to face consequences. Family means infinite forgiveness. Family means the responsible ones sacrifice forever, while the irresponsible ones take forever. Being family doesn't mean being a doormat, I said quietly, and I'm done being one. By Sunday evening, my phone was buzzing with texts from various cousins, family, friends, even people from high school who'd somehow heard about the drama. Everyone had opinions about what I should do. Everyone knew how to fix the situation. Everyone. Except the person who'd caused it. Monday morning brought the Instagram post that changed everything. I was drinking my coffee, scrolling through emails before work, when Kaylani's story notification popped up. Usually I ignored them now, but something made me click. There she was, red-eyed and raw, sitting in what looked like her bedroom, talking directly to the camera. I don't usually do this, but I'm desperate, she began, her voice shaky. Some of you know I launched my skincare line last week. What you don't know is that my business partner, my own brother, has frozen all my accounts and pulled out of our agreements without warning. My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. I put everything I had into this business, my heart, my savings, my dreams, and now, because of one misunderstanding, I'm losing it all. The manufacturers won't release my inventory without payment. My website is down. I can't even access my own business bank account. She wiped her eyes, but the tears kept coming. I know this is humiliating, but I'm asking for help. If anyone has experience with business law, or if anyone wants to invest in something beautiful that's being destroyed by family drama, please reach out. I just need a chance to rebuild what I've lost. The comments started immediately, hundreds of them. This is so awful. Family should support each other. I'll invest. Give me your Venmo. But then I saw other comments, people asking questions. Wait, what was the misunderstanding? Why would your brother do this? There has to be more to this story. And then, buried about 50 comments down, someone I didn't recognize had written, I was at your launch party. Didn't you literally mock your brother in your toast? Called him a control freak who can't create anything. Maybe there's two sides here. My hands were shaking as I typed my response. I'd planned to stay quiet, to let her dig her own hole, but seeing her twist the narrative, this completely making herself the victim, while painting me as some vindictive monster, broke something in me. I left a comment, build it on your own this time. You said you could, short, simple, but it landed like a bomb. Within minutes, people were liking my comment, replying to it. Someone wrote, "Oh my god, is this the brother?" Another, "Tea spilled." My phone started ringing immediately. Kaylani, of course, but I let it go to voicemail, then mom, then dad, then Kaylani again. I turned the phone off and went to work. At lunch, I turned it back on to a flood of notifications. My comment had blown up. People were screenshotting it, sharing it, dissecting it. Kaylani had replied, "Wow, just wow, this is what I'm dealing with." But the tide was turning. More people from the launch party had started commenting, sharing their perspective on what they'd witnessed. Someone posted, "I was there too. Your toast was brutal. No wonder he pulled out." Another, "You basically called your investor a loser. In front of everyone. What did you expect would happen?" By evening, Kaylani's desperate plea for help had morphed into a cautionary tale about burning bridges. Her follower count was actually dropping. The comments had shifted from sympathy to skepticism, with more and more people pointing out that there were clearly two sides to this story. And maybe the brother's response wasn't as unreasonable as it first seemed. The final blow came from someone who'd done the research, just looked at the business registration. Your partner brother is listed as 50% owner and co-founder. So this isn't some investor who got mad. This is a business partner you publicly humiliated. Yikes. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. 3 weeks later, I was finally starting to sleep through the night again. The constant buzz of family drama had faded to a manageable hum. Kaylani had stopped posting about the business entirely. Mom and dad had stopped calling every other day. Even Aunt Viridian had backed off with her concerned check-ins. I was learning to live without the weight of someone else's problems on my shoulders, and it was strange, good, but strange, like walking around without a backpack you didn't realize was there. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, I got an email that made me smile for the first time in weeks. It was from Quinn, a marketing director at one of the companies that had been at Kaylani's launch party. We'd talked briefly that night before everything went sideways. "Hey Soren, I hope this isn't weird, but I've been thinking about what happened at that launch party. I wanted to reach out because I was actually impressed by how you handled that situation. The restraint you showed was pretty remarkable. I've been in similar spots with family businesses, and I know how hard it can be to step back when you need to. Anyway, I'm launching a new division at my company and looking for someone with your skill. Said someone who can build something from the ground up but also knows when to set boundaries. Interested in coffee sometime?" I read the email 3 times before it really sank in. Someone had witnessed my worst family moment and seen strength instead of failure. Had seen boundaries instead of pettiness. I wrote back immediately, "Coffee. Sounds great." That weekend, I ran into Kaylani at the grocery store. We hadn't spoken since the Instagram debacle, and I wasn't sure what to expect. She looked smaller somehow, tired. The manic energy that usually surrounded her was gone. "Hi," she said quietly, stopping her cart near mine. "Hi." We stood there for a moment, to people who'd once been inseparable, now strangers navigating the produce section. "I've been thinking about what you said," she finally continued, "about building it on my own. I waited. I got a part-time job at that boutique downtown, and I'm going to try to save up, start smaller this time. Maybe with just a few products instead of a whole line." "That sounds smart," I said, and meant it. "I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I'm sorry about what I said at the party. I was nervous and trying to be funny, and I was an ass." It wasn't the full apology I'd wanted. It didn't acknowledge years of taking advantage of my support. It didn't recognize the pattern of behavior that had led to that moment, but it was something. "Thank you," I said simply. "Do you think?" She hesitated, looking younger than I'd seen her in years. "Do you think we could maybe get coffee sometime? Not about business, just as siblings?" I considered it. The old me would have said yes immediately, would have rushed to bridge the gap, to make everything comfortable again. But the new me, the one who'd learned the difference between love and enabling, needed to think about it. "Maybe," I said, "when I'm ready." She nodded, looking disappointed but not surprised. "Okay, I understand," as I watched her walk away, cart squeaking slightly. I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope, not for things to go back to how they were. That version of our relationship was dead and buried, and good riddance. But hope for something healthier, something where my value wasn't measured by my usefulness. Where love didn't require self-sacrifice. My phone buzzed with a text from Quinn. Coffee was great. Want to come in Monday to meet the team? I smiled. Typing back, absolutely, for the first time in my adult life. I was building something that was entirely mine, not fixing someone else's problems. Not funding someone else's dreams, not being the foundation for someone else's success. Just me, my skills, and a fresh start. It felt fucking amazing. 6 months later, Kaylani's small skincare line launched quietly. 3 products, local markets only. Built slowly with her own money and effort. She never asked me for help. Never guilted me about missing family dinners when I was busy with my new job. Never tried to pull me back into the old dynamic. And when she sent me a photo of her first real paycheck from her own business, small but hers, I actually felt proud of her. Not the condescending pride of someone watching a child take their first steps, but the genuine pride of one adult respecting another adult's accomplishments. Built it myself this time. She texted with the photo. Turns out you were right. I texted back. Congratulations, it looks good on you. And for the first time in years, when I said something looked good on my sister, I wasn't talking about something I'd helped create. I was talking about her independence, her growth, her ability to succeed without using me as a crutch. That night, I slept better than I had in decades. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable them. Sometimes walking away teaches lessons that staying never could. And sometimes the person you save by setting boundaries isn't them, it's you. I helped my sister launch her business once. I invested my money, my time, my energy, and my emotional well-being in return. She taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. My worth isn't determined by how much I'm willing to sacrifice for other people. That lesson was worth every penny of the 15 grand I lost and every relationship I had to rebuild from scratch, including the one with myself.